You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, this week's guest has a story that's so familiar and so frustrating and so hopeful, all at the same time, that it's just emblematic of this time of life in so many ways. I sat down to talk with Dr. Natalie Perkins, the founder of PAUZ, which is a perimenopause and women's health and wellness company focused on empowering and educating women with personalized treatment and lifestyle plans so they don't have to suffer. Because Natalie, like so many, found herself doing just that, needlessly suffering and awash in a lot of confusion and misinformation and afraid of hormone therapy, and you get the picture. And she has made it her mission to change that picture. And boy, I'm happy that I can play a role in helping her do just that. Because though the tides are turning and more women are getting the help they need when they need it, there are still far too many who aren't. So I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. As always, I will put a link in the show notes so you can check out her and her work. Before we get to it, give us a follow at Feisty Menopause on Instagram and Facebook. Head on over to feistymenopause.com and sign up for my free weekly Feisty 40 Plus newsletter, where I bring you all the health and training news you can use. And while you're there, check out our Feisty Menopause Performance Retreat in Lake Nona that's coming up next month. It is always a super good time, and I love meeting everyone and hanging out and lifting weights and going dancing and all the fun stuff we do along with the education while we're there. Finally, super quick thanks to MIDI for sponsoring our show. I have heard so many people dropping me messages and saying that after having frustrating, unproductive doctor's visits, they made a call to MIDI and got the help they need, which is, again, what we're all about. So thanks, MIDI, for your continued support. All right, enough of me. Quick intro this time around. Let's have a few words of our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. All right, Natalie, welcome to the show. I'm always excited to talk to women who are on the front line doing work in this space. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and it's a bit of a aha moment because I follow you guys, and so many women do, and you make such an important impact for women. So thank you.
I very much appreciate that. And I know your work through Pause and what you're doing there, but like many people in our audience, you also have a very active background, and it seems to me that you were or are an Ironman athlete, and I'd like to maybe start there. Talk a little bit about your history in being an active woman.
Yeah, and I think like I'm not like unlike your audience. I grew up like just loving sport, and at a time where I'm so excited for young girls now because I see how things are shifting and how sport is an option for them, but always loving sport, but not really, feeling like it was a space for women to be in. And certainly, I had always had a very athletic body and never really felt comfortable in my body because it was the time of all those, the Cindy
Boy, I hear
Crawfords
it.
and the whatever. And look, I remember opening the Sears catalog and there would be Carolyn Waldo, the synchro swimmer. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a woman with any muscles. And
Yeah.
so I always kind of just grew up loving it, but not being able to really step into it with confidence and see it all the way through. So it probably wasn't until university where I kind of started back into running, and started doing marathons and had, I when I had my kids, it was like the one thing I could do is slap on my shoes and push them and run. So started marathon running and was able to do Boston marathon twice, which was like incredible.
Nice.
And so I always just found that as a human being, I was a better person if I invested in doing an event or doing a race and not letting that go. And so, sometimes I would hear from other moms or other women sort of a tone of that being a selfish thing, or like, how do you do that? And I just knew in my core, I was a better mom, I was a better work employer, employee, like better spouse. And so from there, when they got a bit bigger, I just wanted to challenge myself. I didn't know, wasn't a good swimmer.
Mm.
And so I had a good friend that was like, oh yeah, like you can do this. And so I
For
started,
Iron Man.
that's what got me into triathlon.
Mhm.
And then of course, like, you know how we are, right? It just starts as Olympic triathlon, and then it's half Ironman, and then it's Ironman.
Yep.
And so yeah, that's my background. It keeps me sane. It keeps me um, fit, and just my mental health, physical health, and I just love it. I love sport. I love all things sport. Sometimes, a do-over, so that I could have thought that a career in sport was possible. I'm always in awe of women who were pioneers for the generation now, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and, I mean, Iron Man is a lot of training. Were you training as a mom?
Yeah, so I waited for the full Ironman, not because I think that you can't do it. It
Yeah.
just, with my career. So I always had a career, very career focused, and had a professional career at a senior leadership level, and two teenagers. So I waited a bit, and I centered it around. We were lucky enough to have a cottage, so I centered it around there. So then at least, I would do a lot of the training on my own, and I would just go out and do the long stuff at the cottage, so that, the kids would be at the lake and having
Mhm.
fun. And so that's how I fit it in personally. Um, yeah, but it certainly is a lot. It does take a toll in terms of your profession and your social life. So I just prioritize any downtime to be with them. And then I, shared with my boss at the time that I was doing this, because I just always had severe brain fog for a few days after the long training.
Yeah. You kind of bring out your brain and it needs some time to
Yeah,
reform.
I always felt like that was the toughest thing. It wasn't like the physical like stuff. It was like just feeling foggy, and the motivation to do anything else but train.
Do you still do any of the triathlon stuff?
I'm still training, like I'm going to do something, but I've had a series of injuries. So dating back a few years now, time flies, right? So it's probably 4 years now. I had gone in to do a race, and I'd always had anxiety in the water.
Mm.
Um, and I spent a lot of years like working on it. And so going into this race, I was confident in the swim. I had there's a tail current, so it was going to pull me. I was very calm. And then I got that anxiety tweak, which I called it, and I had troubles breathing. And it got so bad that I stopped the swim. I was like, okay, calm down. And it was a realization, I'm not anxious, but I can't breathe. And so I thought it was allergies or asthma. I managed to get out of the water, get on the bike, and I thought, like, I could almost hear like a rattling in my chest.
Hmm.
And so I thought, like, if I can get this water out, I'll be fine on the run. You know how our brains do wonderful things in competition. And so some of the water came up, and then I started running, but I just couldn't breathe. And got even so crazy that I was like, oh, maybe someone has an asthma inhaler. So I asked at the aid station. um, and then finally I realized, like, I need a medic. So found a medic. My O2 sat was 80, which I found out after they intubate people at 85. My blood pressure was like 200 over 100. Um, and so I left the race. They didn't take me to hospital. I left the race. And then when I got home, talked to some friends who were healthcare providers, and they were like, you need to go to a hospital. And so when I got to the hospital, I was there for a few weeks. They couldn't figure it out. And then I've been diagnosed with swimming induced pulmonary edema.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so actually what I've come to learn is it's not very many people have it, obviously. But open water swimmers, triathletes, divers, they can get it. And so the basic thing is with the pressure, the weak link is your lungs, and water comes in, and you'll drown. Um, so I haven't returned, but it doesn't cause extra damage if it happens. And so I'm on blood pressure medication. Um, so I'm hoping to kind of see if it works. But I'm not too sure. And then following that, I was like, okay, let's just focus on running and trail running, which I love trail running. And then I've just had a series. I tore my right hamstring, which took at least a year and a bit to get over. I never realized that hamstring was such a bitch to heal.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're notorious.
I've just found out that I tore my left. So I'm I don't know if it's the universe telling me never again, but not giving up.
Do you think it's menopause transition related? I mean,
It absolutely is. So what I'll share is when I tore my hamstring the first time, I was going through similar things I've heard other women talk about. So um, not able to recover, just training didn't feel the same way it felt. Um, a bit of a lack of motivation, which I'd never felt before. And on the in the mental health side, just a complete brain fog, a lot of emotional ups and downs. And so exercise has always been the place to help me a lot when it comes to mood. And so not finding that that wasn't really helping in the way that it was. So I certainly attribute it to, both contributing to the injury happening, but also me pushing through early injury because I use exercise for that mental health. And then the recovery just being so slow as well. So I think all those things. And in terms of this one, I've been doing a lot of soul searching, and I actually feel like, I'm resisting the changes that I need to make fully. I know what they are. I speak to other women about it, and am still resisting it deep down. So I want to train the volume that I used to train at. I don't love strength training, and I'm very open about that. And so that's the one thing that I promised I wouldn't let go, and I let it go. And so now I'm here again. And so, how many times do I need to learn it before I fully make these changes? Hopefully, this is it. But get that protein up, get the rest that you need, and keep those weights as top priority. And then, I got to learn about this volume and intensity thing a little bit more. But it's tough. It's not fun. It's not fun.
did you talk a bit about your journey into perimenopause? Like, did you know when you were going into it that what you were experiencing was that, or did you start to have some of these symptoms and then classic? Because if you have like a health scare and then you're in perimenopause, like sometimes the stuff can just be te hard to tease apart.
100%. And this is where I think my number one, not number one passion, but my priority really is this is the gray spot for women. So A, we don't even know, I didn't even know the term perimenopause existed. And then B, like as women, regardless if you're an athlete, we have these lives of multifaceted, so much going on. And so is it just the day? Is it the heart condition, that the new medication? So, I started having night sweats, waking up like soaking wet. But to me, the only symptom I knew was a hot flash. I'm like, that's not a hot flash.
Right.
And plus, I still got my period. And as an athlete, your period can do some funny things. So if it's light one month, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Um, and so I didn't think twice about it, didn't think anything. And then I just started to be like, okay, well, maybe. And I started talking to other women. Um, at the gym, other women at work, other women at the dog park, like just talking openly. And so this was also a great time for me to sort of start to shed those layers of, being poised and not talking about certain things, just being like myself. So I just got
Yeah.
tired of all of it. So for all of the, challenges that menopause brings, I do love the fact that I'm just in a space of unapologetically myself. And so what it caused, I believe, is women to sort of put their guard down and they're looking for a place to talk and they're like, oh my goodness. So through that, I was more confident it might be menopause, got to an OB-GYN um, who was fantastic.
Oh, good.
And she told me about hormone therapy. I was apologetic for being there. I'm like, I'm so sorry to waste your time. I'm sure this is nothing. And so that's the first time I saw a list of symptoms. And then I realized, hang on a second, the fact that I'm struggling with purpose in my day, the fact that I'm walking around in a brain fog, like these are actually symptoms of menopause. So I started to feel so much better about myself. So I think knowledge is so important just to feel better and not so much in control of the mood swing, but an understanding that you can share with other people to say, like, listen, I am gonna cry at any minute, and so people, okay, okay. So my point in all that was to say I was petrified of hormone therapy.
Why is
Thought,
that?
well, I just knew I just hormone therapy equals breast cancer.
Mm.
And so she talked to me a little bit about it. And then as an athlete, I was afraid, if I increase my estrogen, does that impact my testosterone? Does that mean I'm not going to recover even, you know? And so she talked me through it. And also had said to me, you can keep doing what you're doing, or you can try this too. And, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, this isn't so much fun. So what's the worst that can happen? So I gave it a try. And luckily for me, it was such a major, major game changer for me. So, in particularly around the mood swings and the brain fog and the night sweats. So, for me, I know, it has to be, I think for women, what's so empowering is it has to be what works for you.
Hmm.
But where, I really hope is that we get access to the right information to make informed decisions because there's so much misinformation out there. And it is complicated. And so, making sure that women have the right information to make the decisions that work best for them is what I hope to contribute to.
Yeah, and that is we're in such a weird time. We're in such a liminal space and not a good way. That we have so much awareness now, which is great. We are also dealing with a medical system that is very, very far behind, and there's an education gap that is enormous because there, after the WHI stuff, I mean, everything just kind of fell by the wayside, and like practitioners they weren't getting menopause education, so we have like this giant gap and then there's social media where it's a giant 6-lane highway of information to disinformation to maybe kind of sort of accurate, and it's like a fire hose and you have to sort of try to sort through it, and it's really difficult.
I find it so difficult, and I, liken myself to be an expert in the space. And so, I think if we talk about the Canada healthcare system, well, healthcare system in general, the fact that we have obstetricians who graduate with less than 2 hours of training on women over the age of 40 with menopause, it's unbelievable. Like
It's
I
unbelievable.
find myself some days questioning, like, this can't be. And then you just read, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable what women go through because we've just been invisible after this stage of life. And there's such, like, it's exciting times because we're making such, great inroads. But in Canada, where you don't have access to a family doctor, let alone needing a family doctor to get to an obstetrician gynecologist, And there's maybe, I think we did an analysis, and I don't want to misquote the number, but the theme is the same. It's like one woman per, 20, or sorry, one physician per 25,000 women who might be trained in it. So just do the math on that. And it's not, it's just not right. It's just not right. Um, and so how do you fix it is the question, right? So how do you fix it? So if it's not physicians educated and trained, is there an ability for pharmacists to be able to get in? Like, what does the model look like?
Yeah.
But the system doesn't allow for flexibility. And so, contributed to helping to have a solution for this as well. And then just in terms of the social media, absolutely. Like, there's amazing influencers, but there's almost like a competition for power within that space. And so, like, arguing over bioidentical versus compounded, like, let's just not confuse women. Can we just not confuse women? Can we just keep it like basic and simple? And social media isn't the place to debate the latest peer-reviewed article. Like, it's just not. Um, and it's not fair for women.
Yeah, and it's not let's be clear, also just not going to change. I mean, as you were talking, I was thinking like it would kind of be like if pediatricians were never trained in puberty,
Yeah,
right? It would be just like that.
yeah,
Like to be like you'd be like, I didn't have these before and I have these and now I'm bleeding and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I guess that's normal. Okay." I mean, they just would have no be able to give you no knowledge. It's sort of the same way. Now, I'm curious about the Canadian. I don't know, being in the US, I don't know as much about the Canadian system, but I'm talking to you sort of on the heels of another conversation I had with the housewives of hip hop, who were delightful, and they're out of Canada, and one of them was suffering quite a lot, and she has a history of abuse and a lot of adverse child experiences. She's a refugee, and her doctor kind of just didn't believe, that what she was doing was that bad. And it sounded as though she was kind of stuck, like she couldn't get help. And I was like, I don't understand.
yeah. No, you're stuck. And so in Canada, Um, there is a shortage of family physicians, first of all. So there's many women without a family physician. And you have to go to a family physician who has to give you a referral before you can go to a specialist. So in the States where you can, you know, you have an appointment with a family doctor and you don't have a good relationship or it doesn't jive, you could go to another family physician. In Canada, we just don't have that option
Gotcha.
because of the public funding. And so, the benefit of that is um, our tax dollars pay for healthcare.
Totally. Yeah. I mean,
Our insurance pays for
yeah.
all the other healthcare.
Yeah.
The reality of it is it was built on a system to help sick people.
Yeah.
It's not a system built to sustain health promotion, health prevention.
It's everywhere, I
And
feel
it's,
like.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's interesting times. So we'll see what happens. Certainly private has always been here. It's just managed in a different way. Um, but I think it's one area, even if you are fortunate with money, you still have limited ability to access a doctor who is trained in
Yeah.
Canada. And I feel like it's the same in the States, but I feel like there's more options in this. Like, I feel like there's more trained doctors in the States, but maybe that's more optical. Is it like that there, or what's it like there?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few, I will say. And I don't know what your telehealth system looks like. Like in the States, that is very much becoming a driving force. You have like one of our sponsors is MIDI, right? And that's just like you can go directly to them and you are guaranteed somebody who knows about menopause and knows about hormones. You can go to Genev, you can go to any number of And you can do that without a referral. You can do that yourself. And they're increasingly taking insurance. That you a lot of people go the route, they'll go to menopause.org, which used to be NAMS, the Menopause Society
Yeah,
has a practitioner. And they're I think worldwide. Like you can go and they will give you a practitioner who has been menopause trained through them. Um, but it's like anything. It just because they took the test doesn't mean that because people have bad experiences with them too, right? So it can be
for sure.
a lot of work, a lot of boots on the ground to try to find a doctor who will listen, who will believe, who is
Yeah,
informed. I mean, it's I hear stories not daily, Natalie, that have me just banging my head against the desk. I can't believe what I'm hearing.
I know, I know. Kelly Casperson put on her feed a book about the health gap that just came out. So
Yeah.
I was looking at it, and I think it looks, I haven't purchased it yet, but one of them was, basically if a man presents in pain, he's a hero and heroic. If a woman does, she's hysteric and emotional. Um, so a lot of this comes, I think, to the point where women collectively coming together
Yeah.
and stepping into the space of confidence to be like,
Yeah.
no, no, I'm not hysterical. I'm in pain.
As if you have
But
nothing better to do than just to
I
like,
know, but it
you
goes
know,
back to that point of like, we are superheroes, right? So we have 10 million things going on. Something always hurts on our body. So what is the problem? And I go back to sort of my data hat, which is like, if you can't measure it, you don't know. And so I certainly encourage, it's not rocket science and it's not sexy, but I really encourage women to take note, take a log, take 5 minutes every day because it matters. It matters to say, like, my mood was a 0 out of
right,
5,
right.
my body hurt this, um, and then look back for themes
Yeah.
because getting ahead of stuff early, it makes such a huge difference. Such a
Yeah,
huge difference.
no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm always, like many people sort of have, a similar journey to what you're talking about. Like they hit this, they hit the transition, they don't know what's happening. And then all of a sudden, like they start digging into like, why do I feel this way? And then they discover, oh, look, this is giant hormonal transition that nobody ever
Yeah.
told me about. Not all of them, however, then start like foundations or businesses or, they're like, I'm always interested in the women like yourself who go, I'm going to start something to fix this. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, what is your background? I mean, you have a background in it sounds like public health and you've been involved. Like, was it that part of you that was like, oh, okay, my next act is going to be this business?
It's like everything. I think it's a series of events that all meet up at the right time. So professionally and educationally, I've been in healthcare. I have my PhD in public health. And professionally, I've worked in the healthcare system my entire career, starting in public and government and hospital, and then shifting into private with lab. I was at a startup, which really tweaked me that I've always had this underlying entrepreneur spirit, but not the confidence and just too fear and risk adverse to step into it. So I can't do that. I need to make money. I need to pay bills, and I have kids. All realities.
Yeah.
um, and then I walked into an executive position at a virtual healthcare company, and you know, super career driven person, wanted to be CEO, corporate focused, like drove towards that. Um, but did have this entrepreneur side, which I didn't really fully recognize. And then just going through this whole entire experience, I was just flabbergasted that this is the situation for women. And when I went to that obstetrician appointment, I clicked. Yeah, I talked to her. We talked a bit, but really it was, here's the risk factors, here's your symptoms, this could work for you. And I'm like, this is very virtual. Like, this could be virtual. Like, certainly there's complicated people, certainly there's whatever, but we can do better for access. Like we can do better. Um, and so those two big factors, and then just really the heart condition and realizing I've always kind of lived that you only get one chance at life. Life is short, but having sort of that near death experience really kind of heightens it, I think, a bit. And then my partner is an entrepreneur, and he just really sort of challenged my fears and was like, if not now, when?
Mm.
And so having that support system, that is huge. So that was it. I was just like, okay, I quit my job. And so, I'm also grateful for menopause for giving me that heightened awareness of purpose to your day, because I was like, am I really going to work here and not really change things in the way that I want to change it? So if it's mine, I get to approach things the way I do. I get to decide the budget. I don't have to build a business case for putting dollars towards women's health, you know. So that was it. That was it. And it's been about a year, and haven't looked back. And I'd say no regrets. Everything is as hard as I thought it was going to be. Um, but, having that purpose back in my life and the joy of being able to do this and the joy of being able to talk to women and the creativity behind it, it has just been the most fantastic experience. I feel so blessed.
Where are you currently with pause and where do you want to go with it?
Yeah. So the aim of pause, and the education and awareness is such a chasm for women. It's hard to come up with anything that doesn't address that. So I keep sort of getting stuck in this education and awareness. So we made a purposeful decision as we're building. Nothing stops us from getting information out there, and in the spirit of transparency and just being authentic. So we have our social channels live, with information that's aimed to be in the voice of women having a glass of wine together and just practical tips or guidance. And then events. So we held an event in Toronto, in May, to bring women together, learn about menopause, learn about hormone therapy, bring out some women who have started companies in this space. So we've launched those things. We do have the site live. And the goal is to launch the coaching platform in September. So we'll be looking to help women through, whatever their issues are. If they want to just learn about menopause, if they want to learn about hormone therapy, if they want access to providers, if they want nutrition and exercise, in these areas, they can work with a coach that will help with them. So that's sort of the first thing. And then the second is being able to book appointments with not just hormone therapy providers, but well balanced experts in the space, as well as pelvic floor physiotherapists, sexual health therapists, and dietitians, among others. So, I think one of the big things in this whole world is sexual health. And you know, not like anything else, but I think it's more heightened is, women just accept that there's pain during sex or their libido is gone. And so, how can you step into a space where you can shift women to actually own their libido, talk about sex openly, talk about, I want to get it, I want it to be good. How do I do it? Like all these things that we deserve to have at this stage of our lives. Like we've been through battles, and now a lot of these battles are done, right? Like I mean, professionally, you're sort of towards the latter part of your career. Your children are probably off or on their way out, and it's not to diminish all the challenges that we still have, whether you got to take care of your parents or whatever. But certainly this is a time where understanding your sexual identity, stepping into that space and having fun, like bring the play back in your life. Like, why do we have to be boring adults? Like, we should never lose play. We should play through sport. We should play through our sexual health. We should just play. Like, this is what life is about.
Yeah, I mean, that is what we are about too in our hit
Yeah.
play, not pause
Yeah, I mean, you guys
ethos.
pull it right out into your brand tagline, which I think I shared originally. I sort of was playing in that space. I saw you guys. I'm like, of course, you guys have that fantastic line. Like, okay, well, no,
Yeah,
but it's
no, that
true,
that
right?
it is great. And so I'm really clear, I did spend some time on your site, but is it kind of a concierge model? I mean, is it a subscription thing? Like how like when women engage with it, what are they just coming how are they coming in to find all these different buckets you provide?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a subscription model on three tiers. So the first subscription is like a self-serve, so access to the resources on your own, access to be able to book with providers on your own. And then the second tier is, recognizing, okay, I'm really struggling, or this is a new space for me. I just really want a concierge or a liaison. So like you're a friend, somebody to listen, guide you, direct you, help you with the changes you want to make. And so that's the second tier subscription. And then the third tier is just a little bit more intense with that.
Yeah.
So I hope that's clear.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time and we continue to spend a lot of time understanding and talking to women and giving something that will hit the mark and help, and so that it's nuanced in that space, right? So as a startup, we're always shifting and moving, but that's the framework for what we'll be providing um, in the fall.
Excellent.
Yeah, but we are live now, and so
Mhm.
certainly on our social channels, certainly joining through the platform now will get you access to our newsletters, access to our events, and just first to know what's going on.
Perfect. Well, I again, I love when women do this. I've had a few on the show who just, who take their own experience and say, "I'm going to make this better for other women." I think there's a lot of power in that. I'm glad that you found help, in your own journey. Uh I hope you continue to heal through it sounds like you're not quite out of the tunnel yet as far as the heart situation and am I
We're
correct?
never really out of the tunnel, and I think that's like we're always on a personal healing and growth journey. We're
Yeah.
always on a physical one too, and sometimes it's more obvious than when it's not. Um, but it's always a journey, and so learning what the lessons are along the way and growing and having fun, those are sort of the principles that I try to live by.
Yeah, I really like that. Is there anything that we have not talked about that you just wanted to make sure that our audience heard about your philosophy or what you want to do?
Well, I'll just keep talking all day. So for me, it's really like if the message is for women to take the time to reflect on who they want to be,
Mhm.
not who they think they need to be for this person or that person, but who do they want to be, and step into it unapologetically and invest in themselves, because investing in yourself is the right thing to do, but it also pays for all of your relationships as well.
Yeah.
So that would be sort of my takeaway hope for women to hear.
That is a perfect message to leave on. I will put your links in the show notes so people can find you. And I really appreciate what you are doing to help women during this very pivotal time in life when the resources are hard to come by.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you do again.
Thank you. Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I have a great conversation with sports psychologist Dr. Erin Ayala all about the mental challenges of menopause and sport, and of course, what you can do to improve your mental game during this time of life. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.